It has been my passion to tell people about this because I don't want women to have unnecessary surgery.
I'm Chloe Nordquist reporting.
Chloe, thank you, and that will do it for us today. I'm Chris Stewart. Denver 7 News at 5 starts right now.
Stand by for an explosion.
For the second day in a row, an explosion in Westminster.
We've got indication that there was an explosion and the whole building is on fire.
This time, a portion of an apartment complex goes up in flames, forcing multiple people out of their homes.
Ukraine declares a state of emergency as more Russian troops move in.
We have not seen any data points that alleviate the grave concern.
And Denver gets ready to say goodbye to the COVID vaccine mandate.
It's time to move to more of an endemic response to managing COVID-19.
And first at 5, we want to get straight to the very latest on that housing complex explosion in Westminster.
So we know at least 8 units are impacted and 2 people have minor injuries. Now this is the Stratus townhomes off Sheridan Boulevard and Highway 36. That is where we find Denver 7's Bion Wang.
And Bion crews say there was an explosion and a fire and they're still working to put that fire out.
And Shannon, good evening to you guys. That's exactly right. This is an all-hands-on-deck effort. Crews are still out here. Let me step out of the way, hitting hot spots with water, really trying to monitor other parts of the unit to make sure there's not possibility for a reignition in any way. Now, we don't know the cause of the fire, but I want to get right to the aftermath of the explosion. Take a listen to viewer footage here.
All of a sudden, my whole building shook. There's a fire in the building right across from mine.
And she is just one of many residents who are on edge and shocked that something like this happened in the middle of the day. And have a listen to what another resident experienced who lives in the building right next to this explosion.
The house was just blazing. It was on fire. The flames were so hot it started turning blue. Then we all evacuated.
And I just want to step out of the way one more time. They're also hitting the hot spots from above there because they don't want to take any chances of reignition here. We understand that some residents have been allowed back into their units, but there's also an alert of high carbon monoxide levels in this area. So still a lot of residents not allowed back in just yet. The big question, how did something like this happen? An explosion in the middle of the day at this unit impacting 8 apartment homes inside that building. A lot of people on edge here, and we're going to figure out why. Coming up at 6, we're hoping to hear more updates from authorities, and we'll bring it to you live.
All right, Bion Wang in Westminster. Thank you, Bion. Again, this is the second residential explosion in Westminster this week. The other was yesterday at an abandoned home near Highway 36 and Federal. You can see on this map just how too close these 2 explosions are to each other. Investigators have discovered possible human remains in the debris at that first one, the abandoned home site, and they're still looking into the cause. Denver 7 also has found police had been called to that home several times in the past. 2 of the calls were a report of a suspicious person near the property. We will keep monitoring both scenes and bring you the latest on air and on the denverchannel.com. You can also find information right now on the free Denver 7 Plus app.
Yes, it is still freezing out there in Colorado as we take a live look over Denver. In fact, it's really literally below freezing. Yesterday, Denver's record high was 8 degrees. This morning we hit -7 in the city, and that is a new record low for February 23rd. And it beats the record of -4 degrees. That was set back in 1899. And to do the math for you, that means this morning we hit the coldest low in Denver in 123 years. And to tell us more about when this cold snap will end, here's meteorologist Mike Nelson. Hey, Mike.
None of that's making anybody feel any better, Ann, but I do have good news coming up mostly in the 7-day. Right now, temperatures are still really cold, especially from Denver out across the eastern plains. We're 9 degrees here, and the high today did manage to struggle up into the middle teens, but we still have the winds to be a concern about coming in from the east. 15 below wind chill factor currently on exposed skin up at Sterling, 14 below at Colorado Springs, -7 in Denver and up in Fort Collins. So the wind chill advisory continues for tonight, while the mountains still remain under winter weather advisory. advisories and winter storm warnings through early tomorrow morning. And we're not done with the snow yet either here in the Denver area. You can see a new band that is developing up in Boulder County and Larimer County. And the forecast shows that band tonight dropping down through the metro area overnight. It's going to be another one of those 1 to 2 inches for the most part by early tomorrow morning. And then we'll have the slick roads to contend with. But I do have some good news. This thing is starting to wind down a little bit. We'll get the metro snow tonight. But looking ahead, the temperatures are going to get back above freezing noon on Saturday. And in the 7-day forecast, I have some 60s. I'll share that with you in about 15 minutes.
We'll see you then. Thank you, Mike. As more Russian troops move in, Ukraine has declared a state of emergency, and the country's president tonight pleading for peace. He says Russian President Vladimir Putin would not accept his call.
And despite sanctions by the United States and other countries, U.S. intelligence indicates a full-scale invasion is imminent. ABC News reports that Russia has about 80% of its forces ready to go.
As we have noted in recent days and recent hours, Russia's invasion of Ukraine is beginning. President Putin authorized Russian troops to enter those regions. He has taken other steps that amount to a direct assault on Ukraine's sovereignty.
And today, President Biden announced new sanctions against Russia, this time directed at the company building a critical pipeline through Germany to Russia. Russian President Putin is remaining defiant, and he told Turkey's president he is disappointed with the response from the West and says the U.S. and NATO are ignoring legitimate Russian concerns and demands.
Denver will no longer require city employees to be vaccinated against COVID-19.
This also applies to Denver teachers, contractors, and workers in high-risk settings. Denver 7 CB Cotton is joining us live in our newsroom and is looking over the new order that goes in place at the end of next week.
So, CB, the city was adamant employees needed to get vaccinated last year, so why the about-face?
Shannon, as we've navigated the ever-changing COVID protocols during this pandemic, the word we've heard a lot from city leaders is data. And that's the key word in this situation, too. The Denver Department of Public Health says the virus isn't spreading as rapidly in the Denver metro, so this is the decision that makes sense right now. In fact, the latest data shows the Denver metro's 1-week positivity rate has dropped below 5%. And Bob McDonald, director of Denver Public Health, says their modeling suggests lifting the vaccine mandate will not have a negative effect on the downward trend. Many of you might remember last August it was announced that the vaccine would be required for the vast majority of employees who work for the city and county of Denver. And by October, city leaders reported nearly 99% of the workforce was vaccinated. Of course, some people were fired for choosing not to follow the mandate, and they were told they couldn't be rehired for 5 years. We learned today those terminations will stand.
You know, the discipline process with respect to this mandate is the same discipline process that's used for other disciplinary matters within the city. I don't just serve as the public health administrator, I manage a department myself. Those disciplinary measures were in place long before the pandemic. Employees had the opportunity to make their decision, and the rules for when employees get to return if they've been dismissed are still going to be followed as they have been, again, even before the pandemic.
And despite the city standing firm surrounding the disciplinary process, some people who were fired are considering their next legal steps. We'll have more on that coming up tonight on Denver 7 News at 10. And we should also note federal and state vaccine mandates are still in effect for workers and people in certain settings, including medical facilities.
All right, CB Cotton, thank you very much for that. Let's take a closer look at the numbers tonight. Denver Health says officials COVID positivity rates are now below 5%. Our positivity rate for the whole state is about 3%. Wow. The last time Colorado was below 5%, that was last July.
Former Douglas County Superintendent Corey Wise has landed a new job in the Jefferson County School District. He's now joining a dozen others as a community superintendent for Jeffco Schools, and Wise will be in that role through the end of the school year. Now, Corey Wise has also hired attorneys to preserve evidence related to his firing earlier this month from the newly elected conservative Dougco board. The board hopes to fill his vacant position by early next month.
What we said to Corey is that, you know, we do have a strong four that are prepared to move forward.
How did we get to this point in Douglas County?
It started with public records requests.
New calls, texts, and emails reveal the private conversations board members had before they decided to fire Superintendent Corey Wise.
In the calls, you hear them very clearly say, we had these conversations with one another one-on-one.
Dozens of new food options coming to DIA, and most of them are local restaurants you may already love.